attend it today through the recording. So before we jump in, Zoom is probably new to a lot of folks, so I thought I would just walk us through some basics on Zoom as well as microlearnings, and then we'll jump right in after that. So I'm going to share my screen here, so hopefully this works for everyone. So this is our plan, is to talk about stress, talk about state-dependent functioning and emotional regulation. And oops, sorry. And so I'll talk about some Zoom basics first, microlearnings in general, and then we'll dive into the content. And with the content, we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a second. So I'll come back to that. So in terms of Zoom basics, if you're not familiar with it, if you wiggle your mouse, you should have a menu bar along the bottom. Down to the bottom left are options to keep yourself muted, and it looks like everyone is muted or pretty close to everyone is muted. Appreciate that. With this number of people, we probably won't ask you to unmute yourself and just ask questions verbally. Instead, if you have questions, we'll ask you to use the chat for that. So also along the bottom is a little chat button. And if you click on that, if you don't have Zoom in full screen, it'll show up as a menu, as a bar on the right-hand side. If the chat shows up as a bubble right in the middle of the screen, just hit escape and you're probably in full screen if that's the case. Other Zoom basics, yeah, so type questions as you have them into the chat bar over to the right, and Cassie will keep track of those questions, and at the end, she'll highlight some of the questions that were raised for me to respond to. So feel free to join that way if you'd like to. We are recording this, so keep that in mind. I'll use what are called breakout rooms a couple of times, and so I'll let you know when we're going to do that. But what'll happen is when I start that process, you'll get a little prompt asking you to join a room. Just click join, and then suddenly, instead of seeing a lot of faces on the screen, you'll only see 3 or 4 or 5 faces on the screen. And then you and those people have the opportunity to have a private conversation about what we just talked about. Keep in mind that you may not know everyone in there, so just start with quick introductions. And then when the breakout rooms end, you'll see a countdown clock that counts down about 60 seconds. So you can either wait till that ends or you can come back to the main group. There's a button to click at that point from breakout rooms. We've discovered that if you've joined by video through your computer, but you're using your phone for audio, then you may, when we go to breakout rooms, your video may go to one room and your audio may go to another. So if you're set up that way, I don't have good answers for you yet, other than maybe people will see you and not hear you, and other people will hear your voice and not see you. So hopefully that doesn't become a problem. It'll be fun if it does. A good Friday afternoon fun. And then at the end, we will, so this is new for us, right? We will have a survey. We're required in our contract with FSD to survey you for satisfaction on trainings. So we have to do that, and we want it. But because this is also new for us, we really want your feedback around what worked, what didn't work, what might make something like this a little bit better. Okay, give me a thumbs up if we're good to go. Okay, great. So microlearnings in general, it's a new idea that we have. We're going to try to offer them, or we are going to offer them weekly. We have brainstormed, and we already have 10 weeks worth of ideas on our end. So everyone's putting these together. They'll always be offered through Zoom and recorded. So if you can join live, do so. And if you'd like to watch the recording, we'll always do that. They're designed to be short, 30 to 60 minutes. They're designed to be the kind of the beginning of conversations that you may want to then take up in your own districts with your own teams. And you can also reach out to us training coordinators if there's anything that comes up in a microlearning where you feel like you'd like to go into more depth with your team. Reach out to your TCs and we can absolutely do that for you. The only other piece in Zoom that I forgot to mention is that in the upper right, there's the option to either have it set for gallery view, which means you can see a lot of faces at once, or speaker view, in which case you should see me or whoever spoke most recently. Are you seeing me in speaker view? I'm not sure. Are you seeing? I'm seeing, yeah, you guys are seeing me? Okay, good. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my agenda. Yeah, Cassie, go ahead.
Sorry, I had to unmute. One thing we didn't think through is because we're tracking who comes to these, if you've joined by phone, we don't know who you are. So if you wouldn't mind just shooting me an email at some point and saying, hey, I joined by phone, then we'll be sure to track you and make sure that gets in your transcript later. Thanks.
That's right, Cassie, thanks. Yeah, we only see a phone number, right? Yeah, okay. So I'll dive into this. So we're gonna talk about stress. We're gonna talk about how stress can lead to vulnerability or resilience and what makes the difference with that. We'll talk about state-dependent functioning, how stress affects our ability to function, as well as the ability of our colleagues and our clients. We'll talk about emotional regulation and what all of this means in our different roles as leaders, as colleagues, and as service providers. And then at the end, we'll go through the questions that folks have typed into chat, and I'll do my best to answer as many of those as I can. Some of this will be review. A lot of you know this material already. Some of you have been in trainings with me. Not all of it's review, some of it's new as well. So with stress, and on this screen share view, I believe that you can click and drag the images of me speaking. So if it's blocking your view, you can minimize it or drag it out of the way. So with stress, we know that stress can be positive and it can also be toxic. And the biggest differences between whether the stress that we experience lead to increased strength and resilience versus increased vulnerability is about the intensity of the stress, the duration of the stress, and whether or not we have breaks in that stress, and critically, whether or not we have connections with other significant relationships that we can use to help buffer that stress experience. So not all stress is bad. We need stress in order to get stronger. However, when stress becomes chronic, when we aren't able to do things ourselves to stop the stressful experiences or to take a break from the stress that we're experiencing, then the chronic cumulative effects of stress can lead to health problems, mental health problems, as well as physical health problems. So I think everyone knows this. So when we exercise, for example, if you're running and you run a short distance and then the next day you give yourself a rest, that rest offers your body an opportunity to recover from the stressful experience and adapt. And then you're prepared to run again the next day. In COVID-19, in this quarantine with this pandemic, we're exposed to different kinds of stress than is typical, and in particular, a real chronic experience of stress. So I'll talk more about that. The primary difference between high levels of stress that we don't have control over, some of what we're experiencing now, the difference between whether that is tolerable or becomes toxic for you is there's really two primary factors. One is, do you have habits that you're building into your life that allow you to take temporary pauses from that stressful experience? So that's one, habits that allow you to take temporary pauses. And the second one is, are you nurturing your network of relationships so that you always know that there are people out there that have your back if you need something, whether you need something like a foundational need like like food from the grocery store or a roll of toilet paper, or whether you need something like laughter with a friend, the more you're nurturing your networks in an organized way so that you know who your people are and they know that you're going to potentially reach out and they'll be available. Those two factors are going to be what's necessary for us to maintain this level of stress as tolerable and to not have it become toxic. And that's what we really need to try to support our families with as well. So here's my image, right, of this buff guy doing a plank. COVID-19 and quarantining, I would offer, is maybe a metaphor like being asked to hold a plank position for 10 minutes straight. I certainly couldn't do that. I'd be surprised if there are many of us who could get into a plank position and without any rests, sustain that level of physiological distress for 10 minutes. Probably we couldn't do it. However, if you were asked to, over the course of the day today, be in a plank position for a total of 10 minutes, and it's up to you, you can pattern it. You can hold the plank for 30 seconds and then take a 2-minute rest if you'd like to, and then hold it for 30 seconds and take another 2-minute rest. Not only would you be able to cover 10 minutes or more of a plank position, but your body, as a result of stress in the right doses with rest and recovery following, your body would become stronger, and tomorrow it would be easier for you to complete 10 minutes in a plank position. And if you continue to pattern that rest and recovery, followed by stress, followed by rest and recovery, within a week or two, you would probably be able to hold the plank for a minute or 2 minutes at a time before you needed rests. So the message here with this bald, strong guy doing his plank is that we don't know for sure how long we're going to need to stay in this social isolation, remote work environment. If we respond to it in the right way, we will become more resilient with each additional day. The stresses that we're experiencing today as a result of quarantining and being socially isolated will feel less stressful tomorrow, even if they're exactly the same stresses, because we're building resilience through the patterning that we're talking about here. Okay, all right, let's continue. With COVID-19, there are some unique sources of stress, and you're probably aware of these. You've probably thought of them, but I thought I would point them out. We don't typically, if we're fortunate, experience true physical threat to our safety. With COVID-19, we are really experiencing genuine physical threat to our safety, the safety of our loved ones, and it's sustained, right? It's not a car crash where our stress spikes and then we can say to ourselves, we're okay, this has ended, and our stress level can come back down. This is a sustained, unknown threat to the physical safety of ourselves and our loved ones. So it's very real. It makes sense that we would feel this kind of stress. We may be worried about basic needs, right? In the first days and weeks of quarantining, people were worried enough about basic needs that they were taking all of the toilet paper off the shelves. They were buying all of the canned goods. And that was really a dysregulated, hyper-aroused stress response, hyper-vigilant stress response to worry about basic needs. We still have to maintain our attention on our basic needs. We're talking bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, stuff that typically in our lives we can take for granted. We don't have to worry about our physical safety, and we don't have to worry about whether or not we'll have access to food, toilet paper, those kinds of things. They're in question for us right now. The future's unpredictable. We have a loss of familiar routines and rhythms. The human brain really, really, really wants to predict the next moment, the next minute, the next hour, so that your brain can keep you alive, so that you can survive and thrive. And when the future doesn't match patterns that are predictable for us based on our lived experiences in the past, that causes a state of stress. Through social distancing, we've lost connections. We don't see each other, we don't hear each other, we don't laugh in rooms with one another in the same way. For some of us, we're isolating at home with family members, with pets, and others of us are isolating at home completely alone. Some of us may be single parenting and taking care of children and working. Others may be with a partner and not have the responsibilities of children. So this level of impact is going to be different for each of us. And it's hard because we don't necessarily know, unless we ask, what is home life like for each of our colleagues. For many of us, I think we've had a reduction in our typical physical activity levels and a reduction in the time that we're spending outside in the natural environment. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about these being really critical. And then there's blurred boundaries and unfamiliar practices, right? So an example of a blurred boundary, here I am at home, just like you are. You're seeing my cow, you're seeing my little hippie smoker dude. If you're a family service worker and you're interfacing with families in their homes, the boundaries that we used to be able to assume we could maintain of this is Pete, the professional, not Pete who lives in a home and has, you know, all this stuff around him, those are very blurred. And that is going to take a toll on us as a source of stress as well. So these are stressors that are particular to the COVID-19 quarantining experience. Oh, I also want to mention, I'll share this slide set with anyone who'd like it. So if you'd like it, you can shoot me an email at some point and I'll send it out. Go ahead, Cassie.
We just had a little side chat in the chat, and we're going to actually get it up on SharePoint, I think.
Excellent. So enough people want it. Great. We'll just do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So take notes if you want to, but otherwise we'll get this to you guys. Okay. Okay. Continuing on. State-dependent functioning. So this is some of what I think is also a review. So I love to do this. It's the hand model for the brain. I would encourage you to do it. I think it reinforces your own self-awareness, and it's a really good communication tool with colleagues and with families. Kids are even learning about this in school. Elementary kids will know what you're talking about. So if you take your hand in the open position, this represents the brain stem that's in red on here. If you fold your thumb across, that represents the limbic region. And if you fold your fingers down, that represents your cortex, your thinking cap. It is a healthy adaptive response for humans as animals to shift our state of arousal and what our brain orients us toward in response to stress. That's a healthy part of our physiological system. So that if we are driving home from work and we're in a state of calm and we're thinking about what we're going to cook for dinner, I know this isn't the case right now, we're not driving home from work, but if we were driving in a calm state and we're thinking about what we need for dinner and stop and get groceries, and suddenly our brain picks up sensory signals of danger, the screeching of tires, red lights in front of us, honking of a horn, it's adaptive for our brain to very quickly take these thinking regions offline and to immediately release epinephrine, cortisol, adrenaline in our body so that we can have a very quick fight-flight response to avoid harm. So this response of our state shifting in response to stress is good. However, with this prolonged stress that we're experiencing, that's where the cumulative chronic effects can really take a toll. So when we are calm in this state, we're able to be doing our best thinking. We're able to be reflective, think back. We're able to be responsive, plan ahead. Those are critical elements of safety culture, right? To reflect back and to think ahead. We're able to use our concrete and our abstract thinking really well to problem solve. This is where we need to be for safety organized practice. This is where we need to be assessing safety and determining good plans, is in this state. We're under a lot of stress right now, And so this state doesn't happen unless we cultivate it. In this state, we can actually think years and weeks into the future. As we become more stressed, our brain functioning starts to shift toward the limbic region, which is when we're in a more emotional state, a state of alarm. We aren't using our best thinking. We're becoming more reactive, more impulsive. If we have implicit bias, racism, classism, sexism, when we're calm, we can think our way through that, notice, oh, there's my classism, I better shift my planning. When we're in this state, we're much more prone to those kinds of biases becoming a part of our responses. We're tuned in much more to body energy, and we're much more sensory sensitive. And our ability to manage time becomes limited to the next minutes, the next hours. In the most stressed state, we can experience fear, we can experience terror, we become reflexive. In this, reflexive means just your body's reacting without thinking. We're really oriented toward a sense of threat and survival. And this is where fight, flight, and freeze kicks in. And in this state, we really have difficulty thinking outside of the present moment, and we can even lose track of time altogether. So I don't know for other folks, but I think that collectively, when we as a country initially really raised the alarm around this pandemic and said, we really need to socially isolate, I think collectively, a lot of us went to this place for a period of time. I don't know about you, but to me, I lost a sense of time. Time started to have a really strange kind of feeling to it. Days felt really, really long. It was hard to track. How long ago was it that I was in person in Morrisville having meetings, and now we're doing this, right? Time started to lose meaning. It was scary to go to the grocery store. People were reflexive. They were grabbing toilet paper, right? So I think collectively we were initially in this really hyper aroused state. And thankfully, I think we've settled enough that this happens for us, but for the most part, I think we're able to manage ourselves in these states at this point. Becoming self-aware and becoming comfortable with talking with one another about our states of arousal is really a critical part of safety organized practice right now. So if you're trying to make a decision about an affidavit, if you're trying to initiate, going out into the field for removal, we have to assume that you're likely to be in a state like this, or even a state like this. Oops, I'm sorry. And that you have to be aware of that. And your colleagues have to be checking in with you to say, Pete, your body seems to be going really fast. You seem to be talking really fast right now. How are you doing? Before we move forward with the decision-making or initiating this removal, what do you need in order for us to help you calm down? So we need to become comfortable acknowledging this to others and naming it with others, which is vulnerable, but I think it's really critical to what we have to be doing right now. Whoops, going backwards, sorry guys. Because of what we're just talking about, frequent regulation is really critical for these two main reasons. One is that idea that I was talking about around holding the plank for 10 minutes straight. We have to think of this as a marathon. No one knows, which is one of the unfortunate things. No one knows how long we're going to have to maintain social distancing. It could be months. It could be more months, right? I don't think at this point anyone's thinking weeks. I think people are thinking a minimum of months, whether it's a couple months or whether it's 6 months or whether there's a rest in August and September, and then we have to socially distance again in the flu season of the fall. We don't know. But even if it's just a couple of months, that's a long enough period of time that if we're not giving ourselves deliberate breaks in our stress, it will start to affect us in very real ways. So we need to take breaks from the plank, from holding that stress. We also, as I was just talking about, can't really make thoughtful decisions about child safety and family preservation unless we're in a regulated state. And so we have to regulate ourselves and others. We have to make sure that we're connected relationally with one another, and then we're going to be in a place to do our best thinking, our reasoning. So I want to pause talking, and what I'm going to do is initiate some breakout rooms. And I want you to spend a few minutes, it'll probably be about 5 minutes in breakout rooms, to talk with one another about what you've already found yourself to be helpful in terms of you taking a break from stress. And then we won't be able to all talk as a whole group, but after the breakout groups end, if you're inclined, you can share your ideas, right? Type in the chat. Someone might, say walking with my dog. Someone else might say, baking. I have loaves of bread all over the house. Whatever it is that you're finding is really, really important for us to note. Okay, so let me stop my screen share here. And there's my breakout rooms under more. Okay, so we have 66 participants. So let's do 13 breakout rooms. Okay, so I'm going to click a button and then you'll click join, and then you'll be in with those folks. Introduce yourselves and share what you're finding is helpful to take a break from the stress. See you.
You too.
Thanks. All right. Do I have to end breakout rooms? Close all rooms. Okay, bring people back.
Nice.
Welcome back, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Jill.
Hi, Jill.
Hi, Vicki. Or Vicky.
Hi,
No,
Lynn.
Lynn. So on your screen it says Vicky, so my brain just plugged in Vicky. Hi, Lynn.
It's one of those names I've always said. It's a real problem.
I know your name is Lynn. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. There's Liz. Hi, Liz. Sarah Nash.
It is fun. It is fun. Okay, so hopefully everyone's back from breakout rooms at this point.
Thanks, everybody.
Hi, who's that? Oh, I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to go back to a screen share and tell me what you think of this. So here's my timeline. Upper right-hand corner, that little arrowhead, that's today. About 10,000 years ago, agriculture and villages kind of first came about. About 195,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, modern humans, evolved. And if you go back on the timeline, like in here, we're talking like Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo afarensis, Homo neanderthalensis. Remember those guys in the Neanderthals? All of those operated as hunter-gatherers, all right? So the human brain evolved over almost 2 million years in an environment that was characterized as the hunting-gathering group. And what that means is that our brain evolved to function best in groups of around 20 to 30 people, where we have intimate connections where our survival is dependent on those relationships. And also our brains evolved in the natural environment, where being in tune with the rhythms of the weather, the sun, the rain, the soil was all essential to our survival. And so what that means is that disruptions to these two things, disruptions to our sense of social network, knowing who our hunter-gatherer clan is and being in sync with them, and disruptions to our time spent in the natural environment are really, really, really uncomfortable for the human brain. And that was already happening, right? Prior to COVID-19, we were all living in our own homes as opposed to these larger groups. But with self-isolation and social distancing, it's really, really been increased quite a bit. And so when we talk about regulation, we're really going to want to keep those things in mind, being able to do our best to reestablish those kinds of connections with our clan, whoever we identify as our clan, and also time spent in the rhythms of nature and long enough so that we feel our body start to regulate. Okay. So with regulation, there's so much that we could talk about. I spent a lot of time thinking about what I really wanted to point you toward as the most valuable, okay? Physical activity is really, really critical. We're doing so much sitting inside that moving our bodies is really, really critical. A lot of this is stuff we've known for a long time. We've always known that a structured routine and healthy sleep and healthy diet and healthy activity are important, but our stress levels prior to this weren't so high. We could get away with not having those things and it not being toxic. Right now, I have to tell you that if we don't establish these things, it's going to become toxic for us. So you need to have physical activity and you need to have it outdoors. Whenever possible, if your physical activity or sensory activities, right? So sensory activities could be things like, listening to music, dancing, if they can be rhythmic in nature and repetitive so that you do them similarly over time, that will really resolve your stress better. So a simple example of a rhythmic activity outside is going for a walk in the woods. And I know that with social distancing, we're being asked to not do that in close proximity to other people and to stay, I think the recommendations are within 10 miles of your house. I'll admit I'm driving farther than 10 miles to get to woods that don't have trails where I can just bushwhack in the woods because I don't want to be in proximity with other people, but I myself need to be out there. I know that I do. So I really strongly recommend that. Then human interactions, right? This isn't the same. Have you noticed that you can't really maintain eye contact through a video chat? Because if you're looking at the other person's face, you're not looking at the camera. When I'm looking at the camera, I can't see your face. So video chat is not gonna light us up physiologically the same way that being with other people. And so if you have opportunities to respect the social distancing and see people from 8 or 10 feet away and talk with them in person, I would make that happen. Wash your hands, wear a mask, respect the distance, but get together with other people in person. Interactions in particular that attend to our needs following Maslow's hierarchy is important. So I'm going to go ahead a slide and come back. So here's Maslow's hierarchy, right? So down at the bottom, we have physiological needs, safety needs, love and belongingness needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization. So if someone has all of these bottom things in place and we're talking with them about their sense of satisfaction in their job and clarity in their job, then that's fine. We can talk about that with them. We're not missing anything. But things evolve really rapidly in our current circumstances. You may interact with a colleague or a supervisee or a family member who you're serving, a client, and you may have interacted with them a day or two ago and they may have told you everything was fine. And since that time, they may have gotten news that a loved one who they were in contact with yesterday has tested positive for COVID-19, and now their world is upside down, right? And so if we just assume that all of these bottom levels of the pyramid are in place and immediately start a staff meeting by talking about, the work tasks at hand, we really, really could be missing something critical. So I want to suggest that when you're checking in with each other, with your loved ones, with your family members, with your friends, with your colleagues, that you check in really quickly in the beginning of a conversation. How are you doing? Do you have everything you need? Have you been able to get to the grocery store? Do you have toilet paper? Because I've got a roll. work our way up, right? Are you still feeling safe? Does life feel predictable or completely out of control? Because one day it's going to feel one way, and another day it can feel really different, right? There's days where I put on a collared shirt, and there's days where I wouldn't have my camera turned on, right? And they're really different. Are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling connected? So I'm moving my way up the pyramid, from the really basic needs to, have you felt lonely? And in this work in particular, have there been any big case decisions that you've held where you felt like you were holding them alone? Someone told me in a conversation that I had in a work group earlier about an affidavit that they were working on. They sent an email out to people that they thought would be monitoring email. Can you give me some feedback on this affidavit? And they didn't get any responses. And so in that moment, they felt really isolated and really, really alone. So we want to check in with one another about these needs that at other times we take for granted. This can start to feel tiresome. It can start to feel repetitive, but I would rather err on the side of annoying you by asking you these questions when you're like, I'm fine. Why do you keep asking? I'd rather annoy you that way than fail to ask these questions and not know that you're struggling with something like this. So that's what I would encourage for you as well. So then going back to regulation, structure, creating our own daily structures and routines, as well as rituals. You probably took for granted your transitional rituals that brought you to work and home from work in the past. They probably involved getting in the car. They involved putting on certain clothes. And when you came home, I don't know about you, but I would always change out of my work clothes. Part of it is because I wanted to be more comfortable, but part of it is because I wanted to transition for myself so that I was no longer thinking about work. I wanted to turn that faucet off. And so you're going to have to create your own transitional rituals that may happen between your bedroom and the kitchen and wherever your office is, but those are important, some kind of rituals. It may be a walk outside between home life and work life, and then at the end of the day, between work life and home life, some kind of transition. We need to have those routines and rituals for ourselves as individuals and also with our clans. So identify who your clan is. There's going to be some work people in your clan, there's going to be friends, and there's going to be family. If you want to, write the names down, do an eco map. You guys know how to do that so that you can see who your people are, and then create some kind of structure and routines with them. So this worker that I talked about who sent an email out about an affidavit thought that she was on one set of operating agreements, but it wasn't clearly organized within that unit team, that part of her clan, that people would need to know to look there and respond, right? So we need to have organized agreements in place so that it's predictable. A lot of that may come from leadership, but workers, if you don't have it, ask for it, right? Say, hey, we need to arrange these kinds of, who do I get in touch with? Who's my huddle team if I have something that I need immediately? Because when we pause to think future in this circumstance, we don't have answers. If I asked you, hopefully this won't cause you to go here immediately, but if I asked you if you had to socially isolate like you are right now for the next 2 years, right? How many people just went here? All of us, right? When we think long term, it increases our stress because of the nature of the circumstances that we're in. And so any activities that you find that completely bring you to the present moment, for some people, those may be mindfulness. For some people, it may be walking in the woods. For others, it may only be talking in person, face-to-face with a friend. Any activities that bring you into the present moment are going to relieve that future-oriented stress. Does that make sense? So as the stress goes up, if you find yourself really stressed, find what works for you to be engaged in the moment and stay with it for a while, and you'll relax. I'm fortunate I have a ping pong table in the basement, and just hitting a ping pong ball back and forth with one of my family members, at first I can't hit the darn thing because my head's everywhere else. But if I force myself to just hit that ball and just focus on that ball, 10 minutes later, I'm relaxed again. It's rhythmic, it's repetitive, it's sensory motor, it involves another person, and it engages me in the moment, all of which help me to calm down. And it's just a break from the plank. I know I'm going to have to endure the stress again, but for a little bit of time, my body's not feeling it in the same way. We need to acknowledge that we probably collectively and individually are having a grief response to our circumstances. I'm going to, in the chat in a second, I'm going to put an article in there that you can pull out of the chat if you want. We can also put it on SharePoint that talks about this. And I won't spend too much time right now, but you know that the stages of grief at times include denial. This isn't happening. Anger. I can't believe this is so unfair. Bargaining. Well, maybe if we all just socially isolate for a while, then by Easter, we can be in church again together. That's bargaining, right? Sadness, eventually acceptance, and even meaning making out of this experience. You're going to move back and forth. You'll have reached acceptance one day, and then another day you'll be bargaining and angry about it. And so will your colleagues, and so will your clients. What's important for us is to notice it and to be okay with it, not try to rationalize it away or control it away, but simply to acknowledge, you know what, right now I'm just really, really angry about this situation. I have a daughter who's a senior in high school, and this completely disrupted her senior year experience. And there are days where she just needs to be angry, Dad, and not have me help her see how things are going to be better. So there'll be times where you need to make space for yourself, for your colleagues, and for your clients to be in where they're at. And you just need to stay in it with them and help them tolerate it, and they'll move through it. They will move through it. And then also, I put at the bottom, also laughter, joy, and love. The antidote to stress are positive interactions together. It is okay to be playful during a pandemic. It is okay to be laughing and joking. It's probably, I'm getting emotional right now. It's probably more than okay. It's probably essential for us to do this. So tell each other when you feel that love that comes up, right? I had an interaction with a friend the other day about getting together, and I said to him, I'd love to get together with you at a distance, but it's going to break my heart because you're one of the people that every time I see you, I hug you and I hold you, and I won't be able to do that. And that's going to be really hard. We need to be in this place of both loving each other and being sad about it. I love you guys. Okay. Okay. All right. So let me, I won't put that article in right now. I'll share that on SharePoint, the article about grief, because I got all emotional and I can't think clearly. Okay.
That article's amazing, Pete.
What's that?
It's a really good article.
Oh, good. Yeah, you've had a chance to see it. Good. I'll share it with everybody. Okay. All right. So as leaders, as colleagues with one another, and as service providers, we need to, in this order, we need to first make sure we're regulating ourselves, right? It's going to be really hard to regulate someone else, to co-regulate someone else if we're not regulated. And also acknowledge that it's okay if you can't regulate yourself, ask for help. That's really, really important. I'm super stressed today. I'm not thinking clearly. I didn't sleep well last night. Can I have a couple of minutes? Then, like I said, check in. When you're checking in with each other, how are you doing? Do you have everything you need? Are there any changes in your sense of safety and security? Or do you have any family members who have been diagnosed or are sick? Are you worried about that? How lonely have you been feeling lately? Are you feeling connected to each other? Have you had big emotions? Okay, I think I know where everyone in this group is at. Let's look at our work agenda so that we're regulating, we're connecting with each other, and now we're getting to the place where we can reason. We have to get work done. If all we do is regulate one another, we're missing the boat, right? So it's in the service of getting the work done. Check in maybe more frequently with one another than you have in the past. It doesn't have to be for long durations. Just little blips of someone texting you or FaceTiming or using something like this, or even just a phone call. Just that little bit of interaction is going to be regulating for you and for the other person. Some of that you might want to organize it. Some of it can be spontaneous. In addition to, for leaders, when we send out group emails, those have some meaning, but they don't land personally. So send out individual outreach emails or text messages. I would encourage district directors and supervisors, if you have a long list of people on your staff, break that list into 5, because there's 5 days in the work week. And on Monday, send an individualized message out to the 10 people on that Monday list. And on Tuesday, the next 10 people, and organize yourself, and everyone's going to get some of that over time. Some of it's spontaneous, some of it's about being organized. Help others structure their regulation plans. I think we've been in the past we've really honored that personally people will make their own decisions about this kind of stuff. Now is actually the time to ask people, how's your drinking? Now is the time to ask people, are you exercising? Are you feeling isolated and sad to the degree that you're depressed? Now is the time that makes sense in our relationships, partly because we have to be each other's hunter-gatherer clans, and because we can't make decisions about child safety if we're not checking in with each other about that kind of stuff. And if you have a colleague who's really struggling to get this stuff in place, it's caring of you to engage with them and try to help them do it. Obviously, if people say no, 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 we respect that, but I would encourage that.
Hey, Pete.
Yes.
It's Cassie.
Okay.
I should have jumped in a couple minutes ago,
Checking
but
in
I
about
was
time.
following along. Yeah, I just wanted to touch base with you about time. And I know we got started a little bit late, but.
Okay, cool. I will be very aware of time. Thanks. Develop predictable communication plans for all circumstances. I think every unit team, every district office has been doing this, so keep it up. What's your remote huddle plan? Does everyone have a buddy? Does everyone know who their person is on that day, that no matter what, that person's going to be monitoring text messages or emails, so that if there is a crisis, no one sends an email and doesn't get a response? That stuff, if we don't already have it organized, let's polish that up so everyone knows. And those clear agreements around who your immediate buddies are, so that no one's left wondering or feeling alone. So Cassie, do you think we have time to do breakout rooms? I would love for people to just really short, think about what I've talked about, and then say out loud to other people, here's 1 or 2 key concepts from today that I'm going to put into action. What do you think?
I think that sounds great. And folks should just know that if you only planned on staying till 2, that it's okay to hop out if you have to. And if you have a couple minutes to spend with us, we'd love to chat with you a few minutes more.
Okay, great. So keep it really brief. I'll set up the breakout rooms now and just share 1 or 2 things from this conversation that you would like to put into action for yourself. So open all rooms. Okay.
Pete, I have to go.
Oh, hi, Liz. Were you waving to me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Okay. Thank you for joining, Liz. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sending you a big hug.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, guys. I didn't realize I was in a breakout room with you guys. Anyone want to share anything that you're going to hold on to? I can see Tammy, Tabitha, and Kathleen, or at least your names. Okay, so looks like all the breakout rooms have ended. So welcome back, everyone. We're going to wrap up now. So couple of things. I did in the chat, if you don't have it open, I put an article. It's a PDF called "That Discomfort You're Feeling Is Probably Grief." That's the article I was talking about earlier. So if you click on that, it'll open and then you can save it if you want it. I also put a Word document in there that says survey link. So in a second, I'll ask you to take 5 minutes to do that survey for us, and you'll click on that. The Word document will open. It'll have a hyperlink that'll take you to the survey. And the first couple of questions in the survey that open up ask you for the name of the training, the date of the training, and my name. So all of that is in that Word document exactly the way we want it for that survey. But I did want to open up for questions. I looked briefly at the chat. Cassie, were there questions typed up in the chat or not so much? Okay, so
Not so much.
okay, so I'm open. So maybe people can start doing the survey themselves now. But oh, is that not working?
It didn't come through.
It didn't come through.
Wonder if during breakouts it doesn't go into the main chat. I don't know.
Okay, let me try again.
Maybe while you're doing that, I can give a little blurb about next time. Does that sound okay? Oh, there it goes. It came.
There?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so if folks are seeing that, click on it, see if it opens a Word document and then a hyperlink in there that takes you to a survey. And if folks want to, venture into unmuting and asking a question, I'm certainly open to sticking around for a little while to talk with anyone about any questions that you have. And Cassie, you wanted to talk. Why don't you talk about next time, and then we'll see if folks have questions.
Great. So we are developing these as we go, right? So please definitely give us feedback about what worked and what didn't. Next week, next Wednesday, we're going to run remote assessment and planning. Nancy is going to co-train with me, and Heather Meitner is going to join us from NCCD. And so we'll send out an invite for that later this afternoon. And we are building our schedule moving forward. So after we lock down the upcoming dates and times, we'll let people know with a little bit more notice. But we've been trying to build it fast and furious just so we can connect and get to do some fun learning together.
Great, thanks, Cassie. So would anyone like to unmute and ask any questions? Feel free if you'd like to.
This is Keneally. Can you hear me?
Yes, Keneally, go for it.
Okay, perfect. I put it in the chat as well.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering if the partnership would consider doing like a similar group chat for statewide family services people to kind of like come together and break off into those chat rooms, just so people are getting kind of that like more emotional support that they might not be getting throughout the week, especially those of us who might be living alone.
Right, because that breakout room feature isn't available on all these platforms, right? Like Skype and Teams and stuff like that. So yes, we can figure that out, whether it would be statewide or whether we would do it for districts at a time. We can use our Zoom accounts for something like that. So Cassie and our team can brainstorm about how we want to do that. Good question, thanks.
It looks like
Doesn't look like that process is working after all for the survey link, huh? Okay, so maybe you guys can do it manually. So hang on a second. So there's a glitch in the technology that I thought I had figured out. Whoops.
So Pete,
Okay, so here it is. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
I was actually, when it came up, it asked you to save it to your desktop. And then if
Yeah.
you did that, and you could open it, and then it takes you to the link.
You have to save it and open it before it takes you to the link?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so if it came through and you want to do it the way Andrea just instructed us, where you save it and then reopen it, you can do that. Or I have it up on the screen right now. You can manually type this in, and then this is the information that you need to enter for it. So I'll just leave this screen up so that you can toggle back and forth if you want to do it that way. And if anyone else wants to make comments or ask questions, please feel free.
I'm sorry, where was that article? Where's that article on the share drive, or where do we
Yeah,
find
I
that?
think it sounds like my brilliant idea wasn't so brilliant that I could just give it to you through the chat. So we'll put it on SharePoint along with this whole PowerPoint set. Okay. Good question. Thanks, Sheila. Thanks, Harmony.
This is Jill. I just wanted to let people know too that for those of you who really enjoyed this and would like to refer your colleagues or staff to it, we should have all of the resources uploaded to the CWTP e-learning portal by the end of the day on Monday. And so we will be tracking along with the workforce team and uploading all of the micro learnings and complementary resources up to the portal on an ongoing basis.
Excellent. Thank you, Jill. Yeah, thanks for building that so fast too. Good. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording at this point. What I had to offer is done. I'm open to answer questions, but I'll leave this up in case folks need this a little bit longer for the survey. I'm thinking about you guys. I miss you guys. It's nice to see you. Thanks for logging on. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you guys the next time.
Thanks,
Great job.
Pete.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for coming. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday.
Becky, oh, she's private, sorry.
Why can't I figure out how to log out of it? Oh, I've got it. Never mind.
Lower.
Have a good day.
Hi,
Christina, I'm glad your kiddo knows the hand brain. That's cool.
That was really cool. He heard it and he's like, I so know that.
Love it.
So he was doing it along with you, Pete. It was pretty cool.
That is really cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. What do you think, Cassie? Should I wrap this up? Is
I
that
think,
good on the share?
yep.
Okay, good.
I think it'll, let's see.
I can't stop recording until I stop sharing my screen, it looks like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. This
Okay.
sounds good. We can end it.
Okay, let's call it a wrap. Bye.
Okay.